Hello everyone, it's SpawnPoiint and this is ROG's brand new OLED gaming monitor, the world's first 27-inch 4K OLED, and this thing looks incredible. It supports 240Hz, VRR, DisplayPort 2.1 and Dolby Vision. I mean, if you're looking for a new 27-inch screen for your PS5, Xbox or PC, this could be the one. So it's called the ROG Swift OLED PG27UCDM, which is the smaller and improved version of the 32-inch that we saw last year, and it ticks quite a few boxes. So today we're going to go over the features and specs, as well as what it's actually like for gaming on the PS5 Pro and PC. But before we jump in, I hope you had a great Christmas break and Happy New Year. Also, if you've got any questions, just drop those below and I will try to get back to you. Now, if you saw the PG27UCDM last year, you'll notice the 27-inch is very similar in terms of its design and overall look, and that's not a bad thing. It's got a nice thin frame and bezels around the screen, and on the back we've got the clean but aggressive looking rear panel. I know you'll never look at this once you've set it up, but we've got the LEDs on the back in the shape of the ROG logo, and you can change these colours in the settings or switch them off completely. It's also still got the ROG chin on the front, which by default shines red. However, if you turn this off in the settings, it immediately looks so much cleaner. I know it's here for branding, but I'm not a fan of that red logo. Now the screen is then sitting on a metal stand which comes in the box. This just clicks onto the back of the monitor and screws into place. It also gives you full movement, including sliding it up and down, swiveling it left to right or tilting it if you want to. I actually think it's a nice looking stand as well. Now if you'd rather use it with your own bracket or arm, well you can, and that's because it comes with a VESA adapter in the box that clicks onto the back instead of the stand. But yeah, in terms of the overall design and even the build quality, this is really good. I mean, it feels very sturdy and it's well made with no flex at all. As for the picture quality, so this is a 27-inch QD-OLED panel. In fact, it's the latest 4th gen QD-OLED offering some pretty decent improvements. Firstly, can we talk about just how clear this screen looks? Like, this looks absolutely unreal. Now, I've been testing this out on both PC and the PS5 over the last few weeks, and that's because this is the type of monitor that can be used for both. Sure, it's a 240Hz screen which will be wasted on a console being capped at 120Hz, but it does offer 4K, VRR and that OLED clarity. And normally we would be limited to 1440p on a screen of this size, so getting 4K is a huge bonus. Plus it means the PPI of 160 gives us incredibly sharp images and text. And that was actually the first thing I noticed was just how sharp the text is on the PS5's menus. I've been running a 4K 32-inch OLED for the last year, but there's something about a 27-inch 4K that just looks incredible. Also, in case you didn't notice, this is a glossy screen, so there's no matte or smeary coating on it at all, just a super dark tint which should help reduce those reflections in your room. In fact, the reflection handling on this is very impressive. You can of course see a reflection, but as I'm trying to demonstrate here, it's not bad for a glossy screen. Colours are another thing. Now, as it's a QD OLED, it combines both the OLED and quantum dot technology to give us the same benefits of a normal OLED, like viewing angles and contrast levels, but with the improved colours and vibrancy of QD OLED. And what this means is we're getting a more vivid picture and image from the games, which is massively helped by the 99% DCI-P3 colour gamut. I've been playing games like Cyberpunk, which you can really see how the colours pop in the city, or even in the Crew Motorfest, especially in those dark night scenes. The colours are vivid and the contrast is perfect between the light and the dark areas. And talking of the brightness, well in HDR this peaks at around 1000 nits, which is good for a 2% window, although at a 100% window it is just 255 nits. Now this sounds low, but in a normally lit room this looks and performs absolutely fine. I'm seeing no issues viewing the games and other content in HDR, and as the screen does offer Dolby Vision straight out of the box, we get the added benefit of that as well. I would put the brightness on par with the PG27UCDM, maybe even a little bit brighter if I was to compare the two side by side. And something I always like to show off on an OLED are the black levels. So here's some generic 4K content which really does an awesome job of showing off those inky black levels on the panel. You really cannot beat this from an OLED. But just a note though, like with almost every other QD OLED panel, if you shine a light directly onto the screen or your room is super bright, the black levels will look raised and almost purple-like. But this is a known trade-off with a QD OLED screen. So how does this perform from a gaming point of view? Well, for PC gamers, this has 240Hz support. I'm currently running a 4080 Super in my gaming PC, so I was able to actually test this out on a few games that support it, and this screen is silky smooth. Now I've connected this up using HDMI 2.1, which is absolutely fine, but as the screen also supports DisplayPort 2.1, you can get the full 80 gigabits per second bandwidth via that instead. Also, that DisplayPort 2.1 means it's kind of future-proofing itself for the 50 series GPUs that we're gonna get very soon. Performance-wise, well, this is rapid. It's got a response time of just 0.03 milliseconds and an input lag of under 3 milliseconds. It also supports a VRR, or the variable refresh rate, so games or sources that support it will run even smoother than they would at a locked frame rate. And talking of VRR, I know some monitors have had issues in the past with VRR flicker, but ROG have said they've addressed this with something called the OLED Anti-Flicker 2.0. This is designed to minimize the screen flicker by up to 20% when compared to the previous panels. How effective this is comes down to the games that you play and how sensitive you are to it, but any improvement is great to see. Now, I was able to play games like The Last of Us on the PS5 Pro, and seeing how clear the image was, as well as it running at upscaled 4K and 120 FPS, was incredible. To be honest, there wasn't a game that I tested that did not look good on this screen. And although this monitor does support up to 4K, it still works at 1440p and even 1080p if that's what you'd rather run at. It also works flawlessly with the Astro A50X base station, so we're getting the full pass-through with no loss in features at all. Now, not only does this monitor offer HDR, which means games and movies that you watch that support it will look awesome, it also supports Dolby Vision. You can enable this in the settings on the monitor, and it now means if you're playing content that does support Dolby Vision, you're going to get, in my opinion, an even better image quality. Now, I actually normally play on a 32-inch OLED, but I feel that the 27-inch is probably the ultimate size for FPS games. I'm not saying it helped me in Black Ops 6, but I did alright this week. But what do you think? Is 27 or 32-inch the best size for FPS games? So I know primarily you're going to use a monitor like this for PC or console gaming, but if you are on PC, there's a chance you'll want to use it for more than that. Well, firstly, it does come with a USB-C port, which means you can connect your laptop or your Mac and power it at the same time. And that's because it does offer a 90-watt power delivery. It also has a DisplayPort 2.1, which I'll be honest is pretty rare to see, as most of the recent monitors have been limited to 1.4. So you're getting the full 80 gigabits per second bandwidth if you're connecting your PC and using that instead of HDMI. But most importantly, because it's got a 4K resolution on a 27-inch screen, the PPI is really good. It comes in at just over 160 PPI, so not only is the image sharp, but so is the text. We're also getting less color fringing around the text, and the text is overall so much sharper. I can see this monitor being the perfect all-rounder screen that's clearly aimed at gaming, but will easily make a great work monitor at the same time. And a quick look at the ports around the back. So we get two HDMI 2.1 ports, one DisplayPort 2.1, three USB 3.2 ports, and one USB-C port with a 90-watt power delivery. There's also a 3.5mm headphone jack if you want to hardwire your headphones in. As for the power cable, well, it's great to see that it does not need a power brick. So you can simply plug the power cable in and you're done. Now, the monitor does have its own menu and UI that you can navigate through to make adjustments. Things like the game mode option, where you can enable an FPS counter or a crosshair. You can even adjust the LED lighting for the front and the rear ROG logos. I've gone for the all blackout look, as personally I think this looks so much better. Of course, you can change things like the brightness, enable VRR, and various other picture settings as well. You can also tweak the OLED care settings like screensavers and pixel move. And talking of OLED care, even though it comes with a passive custom heatsink, it also comes with something new called OLED Care Pro. This is a new piece of tech that ROG have added, which when enabled turns the monitor to a black image when you step away from the screen. And then when you walk back into view, it turns the screen back on. All you have to do is go to OLED Care, Neo Proximity Sensor, and Tailor Mode. You can then change the distance of how far from the screen that you need to be before it switches off. This should reduce the risk of burn-in concerns as well as privacy. And not only that, it does come with a 3-year warranty, so you're kind of covered for it all. And as for what's inside the box, we obviously get the monitor itself. There's also the stand in two parts, so the arm and the base. There's a VESA adapter if you'd rather use your own bracket or arm, a plastic mold that clips onto the bottom of the stand to create this red logo on your desk, and a pack of accessories. And then in here we get an HDMI 2.1 cable, a DisplayPort 2.1 cable, a USB cable, and a USB Type-C cable. There's also, of course, the power cable as well. So there you have it, the first 2025 monitor on the channel is ROG's 27-inch 4K QD-OLED. What do you think? I think if you've been holding out for a 27-inch OLED that is not locked to 1440p, this is going to be a tough one to beat. It's bright, it's fast, it looks incredibly sharp, and it is 4K. Now, after playing with this for the last few weeks, I'm already excited to see what's in store for 2025 for gaming monitors. But at the time of making this video, the prices hadn't yet been released, so I'll have linked to the product page down below, which by now should hopefully have the prices on or at least more information about it, so go check that out. And once again, I just want to wish you a happy new year, and thank you for making it to the end of today's video. Now drop a nice 2025 OLED in the comments and I'll give you a thumbs up for making it right till the end. And if you did enjoy today's video, check out this one next. Well, thanks for watching, please like, subscribe and follow me everywhere. Until next time.